It's finally happening. The trial everyone in the country has been waiting for. United States versus Diddy. You know, the funny thing is it actually has that vibe of a heavyweight title fight. Although Diddy has his legal dream team, which coincidentally I'm not a part of because I was not available. Well, that and they didn't ask me. But anyway, although he has his legal dream team and enough money for all the experts that money can buy, he still is going to have an uphill battle in this case. I mean, it really will be trial by fire. Now, if I was on Diddy's legal defense team, how would I defend him? What strategy would I use? Well, get comfortable, join me on a legal deep dive, defending Diddy, trial by fire, and watch me lay out my defense for Diddy's trial strategy. Now, getting to the actual fundamentals of this case. And I say the fundamentals because it's always important to look at the fundamentals. What is a person accused of? What conduct is actually being as a crime? Because they're not always the same thing. You know, in this case, we heard a lot of details about the baby oil and these freaky sex parties and which celebrities were going to be involved in the trial. You know, Ashton Kutcher, you know, Justin Bieber, all these people, you know. But really, when you get down to the basics of the conduct for which he's accused that is legal, it's sex trafficking. And sex trafficking is basically when you are taking individuals and for sex purposes, you're paying them, you're forcing them to do things against their will sexually, you're coercing them, you're drugging them, you're transporting them all over the country to complete these sex acts under these circumstances, and that's the crime. Okay, so keep that in context. And there's something else I typically like to take into account when I'm gonna present a defense is what I call the buy-in. And when I say the buy-in, what I mean is I wanna come up with some concept or some framework which I think the jurors will personally identify with and use that aspect in my defense so they can kind of accept or buy in to my theory of the defense. And the buy-in has to be something realistic. It has to be something the jurors can relate to, something that no one can really argue is unrealistic or untrue. It's got to be something very legitimate in order for it to work. So in a case like this, what I would start with as a buy-in is asking everybody out there, every juror, every person, you had a son or a daughter, a relative that was very talented. And as a result of their talent, they became very successful. Maybe they're an exceptional athlete, a professional football player or basketball player, and at 20-something years old, they're signing a multi-million-dollar contract. Maybe they're a talented musician and they're signing record deals and they're popular and they're, you know, all over the country and they're well known. The question I have is, would you be concerned that your son, your daughter, your child, your relative would attract people that do not care about them, but really only want to be around them for their personal gain or benefit? Of course you would, because we all know that's what happens. And I think you would also agree that you would be concerned that these individuals would act like they care about them, like they're close friends, like they only want what's best for them, but all they're really trying to do is look for opportunities to take advantage of them, either financially or personally to advance their own interest. Of course that's going to happen, and we all know that does happen. And the other reality I think we all would agree with is that these people that get close to you, they can often look for opportunities to bring you down just because. Maybe they're jealous that you have something they don't have. Maybe they're just being spiteful because that's who they are. Maybe you didn't give them something they thought they deserved by being a part of your circle. You didn't give them an opportunity. You didn't give them a connection. You didn't truly give them the benefit of being associated with you and in their circle. I think we all know people like that. And these same people that will come to your house every day, that you'll have at your birthday parties, people that you help out, they will throw you under the bus. They will make up allegations about you so they can sue you and shake you down for money or any number of things, just to be spiteful sometimes for their personal gain, sometimes for no reason. We all know that happens. And what you have to also understand is going to happen is the more successful you are, the more money you have, the more people like that you're going to actually attract. I mean, the person, the athlete, the celebrity that's worth $5 million is going to attract a lot more than the celebrity worth $1 million. The celebrity who's worth 20 or 40 or $50 million is going to have a much bigger circle of people they attract than the person who makes $5 million. So ultimately, the more successful you are, the more people like that have access to you. So in circumstances like this, what I like to do is use something I call legal judo. And basically, if you think about judo is a martial arts where you use the strength of your opponent against them. They're coming at you and you take their weight and you throw them. They're throwing a punch, you kind of reverse the energy toward them. That's legal judo, using the strength of your opponent against them. So in this case, my legal judo is taking this concept. Their strength is going to be, they have all these witnesses from all different facets of his life. They're going to be testifying against him, saying he did all these things and saying these horrible things about him. And what I'm doing is taking that into my same concept and saying, again, the more famous you are, the more money you have, the more hangers-on you're going to attract, the more leeches you're going to attract, the more opportunities you're going to attract. People that will turn on you for 15 minutes of fame. People that will turn on you for a lawsuit. People that will turn on you so they can get a book deal. People that will turn on you out of spite. The bigger you are, the more people like that you're going to attract. And that's why they have so many witnesses. Now, getting back to the fundamentals again, and I will frequently do that, going back to the fundamentals, because you got to keep yourself and the jurors focused. So let's talk about what's a crime and what's not a crime. Yes, it is a crime to force individuals, men or women, to have sex against their will. It is a crime to coerce individuals to have sex under threats of blackmail, or somehow you're going to destroy their career. It is a crime to pay people for sex. Those are all crimes. Now let's talk about what's not a crime. Whether you live in a Los Angeles mansion, a New York penthouse, a double wide trailer in the country, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the suburbs, what is not a crime is to have freaky baby oil sex parties with consenting adults. Period. You can do that all day long. That is not a crime. And if men and women voluntarily come to your freaky sex party, that's not a crime. And it's not a crime if they come because they think it's going to somehow benefit their career. Okay? It's not a crime for someone to have sex with Diddy or go to one of his sex parties if they think, hey, it's going to help my career because I'll know Diddy, I'll meet some celebrities. That's not a crime. It's not a crime if they come to your freaky sex parties and participate because they want the benefits of being in your circle. That, hey, Diddy takes everybody, he flies them out to his penthouse, he has a oceanfront mansion in Miami Beach, he takes care of everybody, gives us money to go shopping, we all get wined and dined. Hey, if that's the benefit they receive from having sex in your crazy, freaky baby oil sex party, that's certainly and perfectly legal. That is not a crime. So, in assessing his accusers in this case, what I want the jury to really have some pause on is whether or not this accuser is truly a victim in that sense of the word. So, in that scope, let's talk about different categories of victims. For the individuals that are claiming they were coerced or blackmailed into participating in these sex events, what I'm looking for is evidence that is inconsistent with them being coerced and more consistent with this being consensual conduct. So I'm looking for evidence to make a jury have some hesitation and really think, okay, is this person truly a victim? Or is this a person, someone that participated in this conduct willingly and consensually? And the way I do that is I back the garbage truck up to the courthouse. Anything about that person that I can find or use to make that argument or to make that suggestion, that's what I'm gonna do. So how do I do that? What do I look for? What do I look? Some of the places I look are, number one, in this day and age, it's very easy to look at somebody's social media. You look at their Instagram posts, you look at their Facebook posts, particularly the posts they're making after the supposed or alleged coerced blackmail conduct occurred. If you're alleging that, in the month of May of 2023, Diddy coerced you to have all this sex and you were blackmailed into it and that's the only reason you did all that, yet a month later in June, you're posting pictures of yourself on the yacht with Diddy saying how you're living your best life ever and how Cabo's your favorite vacation spot, and you're wearing a bikini, drinking champagne, doesn't really sound like you're a victim. You don't look like a victim. You're not acting like a victim. What person that's forced to have sex the next week goes on a yacht in a bikini and pours champagne all over their head and dances on the beach with Diddy? That's not how victims behave. So in addition to social media, I look other places. I get cell phone records. Hey, that's what I'll do. I'll find out every freaking cell phone number you have. I'll pay my experts to do data downloads from your cell phones. And this whole concept or thing you think you can do to delete text messages doesn't work that way. Once that information is on your phone, that data can still be downloaded and traced. I've done it on numerous cases. Okay, so I will look at those text messages. And again, if after the time period where you're alleging that you were forced to have all this sex with Diddy and you did it against your will and it was horrible and that's something you didn't want to do, yet in the time period afterwards, you're texting him, telling him what a great time you had at the party and asking him when he's going to be back in LA again. And hey, when's the next party? You got to let me know when you're in town. Had a great time. Hey, why haven't you called me back? Again, that is conduct that is inconsistent with someone being a victim. Another place I look is potential statements you make to third parties. Nobody keeps their mouth shut. Okay? Even if it's not on social media, even if it's not a text, there are people that talk, to your friends or your acquaintances or other party people. And I'm going to have those people interviewed and find out whether or not you made statements that indicate it was consensual. For example, again, these same statements that I'm looking for in text. Did you tell your friends what a great time you had? Do you tell your friends that you think this is going to benefit your career somehow? Or you're hoping that this somehow, he makes introduction to you, or how it was great for you to meet Ashton Kutcher and Justin Bieber at the last party? Again, those are not statements that a victim makes. In addition to statements or texts or emails, I also look at conduct of the accuser after the supposed sexual assault or forced sex took place. And when I say the conduct, if you're alleging, or if a person is alleging, again, in May of 2023, that they were forced to participate in all these sex acts with Diddy, if even after that time period, I see them buying airline tickets, flying out to see him, following him to Germany, going with him to Detroit or New Jersey, showing up at parties and following him around and being a part of his entourage months and months and months after this took place, again, that is conduct that is inconsistent with somebody being forced to have sex against their will. That's conduct of somebody that is basically agreeing to participate in this conduct consensually and continue to just maintain that habit and that pattern of being a part of his circle voluntarily. Now, something else I would do to try to cast some doubt on the reliability of the statements by his accusers is, I will try to pit the witnesses against each other. So for example, the prosecutors, and I've done this successfully in trials, they will call up multiple witnesses. And the reality of it is, people remember things differently. So what's going to happen is this one witness is going to give a statement, or this one accuser, about the date this occurred, who was there, the circumstances and details. But what's going to happen is you're going to have 3 or 4 witnesses that give different details that contradict that first or that previous witness. So what I'm going to do is show a jury how all these witnesses, their stories don't line up. This person said they were there. This person said these are the circumstances. This person said it happened during this time period. If you put them all together, none of the stories line up. Which, the suggestion or the inference to make is they're not telling the truth. Because if they're telling the truth, it'd all be one consistent story. And what I'm also going to do is try to find witnesses that were present or at the event or present during the circumstances where the accuser indicates they were assaulted. And I'm going to interview these witnesses and see if I can find evidence to indicate their conduct was not consistent with someone that had been sexually assaulted. For example, if someone says this happened at a party in the penthouse in the summer, during the month of May, well, I'm going to interview some other people that were there. And I'm going to say, okay, well, did you remember this person being there? Did they seem upset? Did they act like they didn't want to be there? Did they seem like something was wrong? Were they crying? Did they appear emotional? They're going to say no. Okay, again, and be clear, I'm not, directly going to stand up there and call this accuser a liar, but I'm bringing these additional witnesses to the trial to demonstrate that, hey, there is no observation of any conduct or emotions that indicated they were upset, being consistent with being sexually assaulted. And again, that gives the jurors, something to think about, because most people are going to think, hey, if I got sexually assaulted, I'd be a wreck. I'd be a mess. I'd be crying. I'd be upset. I'd be saying, hey, I got to get the hell out of here. I don't want to be here. This is not, those are the kind of things people expect from a victim of a sexual assault. But when you're at this party, at this event, and nobody is claiming or saying that they saw you act in that manner, that's something I think jurors would have to, think about and have some pause as to whether or not this person is telling the truth. I would also investigate whether or not I could establish that during the time period this person claims they were being sexually assaulted, whether or not there was any significant drug use, alcohol use they were engaged in. Now, I'm not saying that, okay, if a person had a couple drinks at a party, that's a big deal. But if you have this person admitting, they were doing more illicit drugs, cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, some people pop pills and things like that, and they were voluntarily, engaging in that type of activity, and it's corroborated by witnesses. Again, what that does is, and I'm not saying that just because somebody uses drugs or has too much to drink that they can't be a victim. However, when you have some fairly chronic drug use in a particular set of circumstances, and it's ongoing and it's kind of a regular part of your conduct, there is a question regarding how reliable your memory is about what happened. Something else I'll delve into is whether or not an accuser derived any career or financial benefit, or tried to derive any career financial benefit from being associated with Diddy. For example, is this individual someone that I can find evidence to make statements saying, hey, hopefully I can get a big break. Hopefully Diddy can get me my break. Hey, maybe he can loan me some money to invest in my social media company. And that gives a motive. That means they're there for their own personal benefit. And when it's not working out, now they've got some reason to fabricate. Either A, they want to, get a lawsuit and benefit financially, or B, they resent the fact that he didn't give them the help, the assistance financially, career-wise, they thought they'd benefit from by being a part of his entourage or participating in his sex parties. That does happen. You have to know, and again, I'm not saying they're not real victims out there of sexual assault. Trust me, that is a very, very serious, problem in all over the world. Sex trafficking is serious. Coerced sex is serious. Sexual assault is a serious thing. However, we have to all admit there are individuals that will participate in activities like that for their own financial benefit, or for the hope of financial benefit or personal benefit. And I also want to find evidence through other witnesses that would show that after the alleged sexual assault, after this went on, this accuser was being affectionate around Diddy. I've actually had cases like that. For example, I had a case, years ago where I represented someone that was accused of date raping a lady. And, she says that, she met him. She met him in a bar, she hung out with him, and the next thing you know, she woke up in his bed and they were having sex, and she doesn't remember how she got there, and he must have drugged her, and literally went to the police. My client says, listen, I don't know why she would say that. He gave me his version of what happened, and what I did is I went on this process where I had him retrace every place he went, the bars, the restaurants, and through at least a half a dozen, if not more, independent witnesses, I was able to have witnesses give me statements saying, yep, they remember that night. They remember this girl who was drunk off her ASS that night, how she met him, at the bar, or actually I think she met him on the side of the road and just hopped in the car and started hanging out with him. They're going to bars. The witnesses are saying that, they remember it because she was hanging all over him. She said, hey, he was kind of just hanging out, but she was kissing on him. She was hugging on him. She was drunk off her ass. She was way more into him than he was into her. And again, so even without anything my client would say, I've got a number of witnesses that make statements that have observations about her behavior that night that is not consistent with her being a victim of date rape. And that case didn't even make it to trial. I got it thrown out because I gave the witnesses information to the prosecution, and they had to make a choice and realize they couldn't make that case. So again, what I'm looking for is witnesses and individuals that would say this accuser was being affectionate or friendly with him after the supposed, sexual assault took place. Because at the end, what I want the jurors to be thinking, and what I would do with these social media pictures and all that kind of stuff, hey, I would put them on, blow them up, show them to the jury. Have the witness say, yeah, this is you on the yacht. And all right, well, you see this photo was dated June 15th of 2024. Now, you're saying that he sexually assaulted you on multiple occasions during the month of May. And you were forced to do these things against your will in the month of May. Yeah? Well, is this a picture of you wearing the bikini on the yacht on June 15th? Yep. Is this a picture of you at the club with him holding 2 bottles of champagne on June 18th from your Instagram? Yep. Is this a picture of you and your friends wearing these little tight outfits doing shots, in the Manhattan apartment in July? Yep. And again, the jury's going to be thinking, this is not a victim. This is someone that seems to be enjoying what they're doing and enjoying this lifestyle and benefiting from it. And they're not acting like someone that is a victim of a sexual assault. That's how jurors think. Hey, if I got sexually assaulted, I wouldn't be sipping champagne with you at the club. So those are the things that I look for or would be looking for to attack some of the accusers. What's good, people? Suits, Law and Order, LA Law, Matlock, Perry Mason. I think it'd be fun to do a podcast talking about our favorite all-time lawyer TV shows. What we like, what we don't like, what's realistic, what's not realistic, and really just go down the rabbit hole. I'll even share which lawyer TV show made the difference in me wanting to be a lawyer. Do me a favor, post your comments and tell me your favorite lawyer TV shows so we can talk about them too. That's it.